This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the publisher of Mac's List. It's an online community that connects talented professionals with meaningful work. I believe everyone can find a job they love. But to do this, you need to learn the skills to build a successful career. From professional networking to personal branding, you've got to get good at job hunting. The show helps you do this. Every week on Find Your Dream Job, I interview a different career expert. We discuss the tools and tactics you need to find the work you want. This week, I'm talking to Serilda Summers-McGee about how to land a local government job. Serilda Summers-McGee knows how local governments hire. She's the Chief Human Resources Officer at the City of Portland. More than 10,000 people work in Portland's local government. In our conversation today, Serilda says relationships matter when you want to get a local government job. And she encourages job seekers to get to know the recruiters who help local agencies fill these positions. Serilda also says it's important to understand how hiring works in local government. She and I talk about the rules managers must follow, and we discuss the myths and old wives' tales about government hiring. Serilda tells me that candidates may face very competitive odds when looking for work in her sector. It's not uncommon, for example, for some public jobs to attract hundreds of applications, but she also offers practical tips to increase your chances of success. Want to learn more? Listen in now at the Mac's List studio as I interview Serilda Summers-McGee. Serilda Summers-McGee is the Chief Human Resources Officer for the City of Portland. She has more than 15 years of experience in human capital management in a range of HR disciplines. And she's the author of Change the Work Game, Building and Sustaining a Diverse Workforce. Serilda joins us today here in the Mac's List studio in Portland, Oregon. Serilda, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mac.
Well, it's a pleasure, and our topic this week is one you know a lot about. It's how to land a local government job. Let's start, Serilda, by talking about why people want to go into public service. What are some of the common reasons you see people give for working at the City of Portland and other local governments?
Well, people pursue positions in the public sector for a host of reasons. I think, everyone kind of has their own journey. There are some folks who are looking to give back. They consider themselves, public servants, and so they want to come and work for government to help strengthen the city, to help enhance the lives of the Portland resident. There are a variety of reasons like that why people come to the city.
That's terrific. Now, like any employer, local government has its own hiring processes.
It does.
But I think sometimes people think that networking doesn't matter when it comes to local government, that it's all about responding to formal postings and filling out forms. Talk about that. How important is networking when you want to find a job in local government?
I mean, networking is important no matter what you're seeking out, right? And it's no different from sector to sector. You need to build relationships and establish a reputation for who you are, how you present, how you show up when there's an opportunity that you're interested in. And so the more relationships you have, the higher the likelihood that you'll be noticed, particularly if there is a really diverse and rich pool of talent, right? How do you stand out?
Well, how do you recommend people get started, Serilda, particularly if they haven't worked in local government before? How can they begin to build those relationships? Who should they reach out to?
Well, one of the best ways to build a relationship with the city from an employment standpoint is to connect with recruiters. So that's one of the quickest ways that a person can get to start to build a relationship is through a recruiter who happens to know every single position that is available currently and in the future at the city of Portland and at every company. You should always know a recruiter. Mac should know a recruiter because one day he may want to go on the inside, right? So you need to know a headhunter who can put you in front of hiring managers and you're not having to go out there in search of something by yourself without an advocate to talk about what your skill set is or how they know you or how you show up and what your gifts are. There's a person who can advocate for you.
So let's break it down because I'm hearing you need to find these people. If I'm here in Portland or perhaps living in another city and want to find the recruiters in my local government, one way to do that is to go to career fairs, but what else can you do? How do you find these people on the web, for example? And once you do find a person's name, how do you best approach them?
Well, our recruiters at the city are listed on the website. One of the quickest ways to be able to access a recruiter is not to cold call because they receive millions and billions of cold calls all the time. It's no way to be able to manage that level of that volume. But if you were to send them an email and let them know that you were specifically interested in a role and let them know why and be pleasant and be calm and be polite to the recruiter, because sometimes people are not so polite. Sometimes people have interviewed for positions for a really long time or they have applied for positions for a really long time, particularly in high volume positions like administrative support positions or entry level roles. And they can become a little feisty. That's not the best approach with a recruiter is to be feisty, right? Like, well, when you never use me for this, not helpful. But if you were to reach out, let them know that you're interested in the position. Let them know that you are going to continue to pursue positions at the city of Portland and be persistent. And then if you have been sending them emails and you see them at a career fair and it's like, hey, I just want to, reach out to you. I'm Cindy. I've been sending you the emails about the positions at the city. And they're like, oh my goodness. Now they've got a face with a name. You're pleasant. You're positive. Your demeanor is really refreshing. Those are folks that you want to put your reputation on the line to put them in front of a hiring manager. So it's never just knowing one person and then utilizing only that one person that one time and look at it. It didn't work out for me. It's being consistent and being persistent in a respectful and courteous way that allows people to see, like, I want to spend time with you, I want to advocate for you, and I want to help you get put on.
So when you send that email, you introduce yourself, you express your interest in a position.
Right.
Is there another ask, Serilda? Do you ask for a phone call for 5 or 10 minutes or perhaps a meeting at the person's office? What is a recruiter likely to say yes to, and how can a person make the most of that opportunity when it comes their way?
It's a great question and a phenomenal follow-up for this reason. A lot of people want to take recruiters out for coffee, but if you get 100 coffee requests, it's virtually impossible to spend 45 minutes to an hour with every person. But a phone call is great. Right. And so I tell folks, number one, just send over your materials. Let them know that you're interested because it's really quick that they can look at what's there, maybe give you some feedback or let you know, yeah, I'll follow up with this hiring manager, especially if it's a hard to fill position. And we have many of those at the city of Portland. If it's a high volume position, standing out like, the initial reach out, then seeing if there are events where they're going to be at, because when they go to these career fairs and things of that nature, they're oftentimes coming with high volume positions in mind. So being there and then also face to name, that's helpful. But then, 5-10 minutes over a phone call, particularly for a mid-level position, is something that a recruiter is always open to because they're also trying to find highly skilled and qualified talent.
Okay. So have a very specific request, a 5 or 10 minute conversation, either in person or by phone. Again, talk about your interest in the position and get feedback about your application materials. And then you can also go to public events like career fairs, which are generally pretty well advertised, aren't they? They are. Okay. And so you're in that big hall. You see this the table for your local government at City of Portland or other cities. You see a recruiter behind that table. How do you make the most of that opportunity? Is it just dropping off a resume, or should you do something else?
So yes, you should definitely bring a resume to those events, always. And that's for not just the city of Portland, for every employer that's there. But you should also shake that recruiter's hand. You should let them know that what position you're interested in, that you've done some research and some homework. Some people come to career fairs, they haven't done any research or homework about any of the employers that are going to be there, even though it's been listed. And then you're saying, oh, I'm interested in the job at the City of Portland. Oh, what kind of job? I don't know. You should know. You should know the kind of job that you're interested in, the kind of job you're probably qualified for, and let them know, sometimes there are hundreds of jobs posted at once. The recruiter that's behind the table, that may not be their rec load, the positions that they're recruiting for. So let them know, and there's a position that's posted right now, or there was one that was posted 3 weeks ago, but I saw that it cycled off. Are you aware of another one that's going to be coming open anytime soon? That's a great entry point into a follow-up, and then get a card and follow up if they couldn't answer a question, or if you just want to remind them that you met and that what your interests were.
So you recommend getting a business card. Should you have a business card of your own, Serilda?
If it's stapled to your resume, what you should have is a resume.
Okay.
That is your business card.
Okay. And then when you want to follow up, what are you asking for? Are you going to say, hey, can I give you a call or send you an email? What's going to help the recruiter and the candidate the most in taking that next step? What do you recommend?
I recommend not coming on too strong because that can be off-putting as well. But what I would say, if there's a lingering question that was there where you asked a question or you made a comment or, there was something that was stated and it was not completed, to follow up and say, hey, you asked me a question about X. I wanted to give you this information. Or I asked you about if there were any anticipated openings in this classification or in this, area of work. Please let me know if you find out that there is going to be a time when that becomes open, or if there's a recruiter that I should be working with in the city who is assigned to that rec load. Let me know. And if you don't hear anything back in a week, one follow-up is always helpful. Like, hey, just want to see if you got that message. I'm still very interested in being at the city. I thank you for your time. It was really great to meet with you. And, if you don't know about this position, is there anyone that you can direct me to? Their job is to be responsive, not just to hiring managers, but to the potential workforce. And so there's a call to action there. They will be responsive.
Okay. I just love your emphasis on relationships because, as with any large organization, whether it's in the public or private sector, sometimes when people are on the outside, it can seem pretty opaque when you're trying to look on the inside.
It is.
Yeah.
Even for a person who's a seasoned HR vet, it's like, what's going on in there? Why is this taking so long? That doesn't make sense to me because every ecosystem is different. Quite frankly, it's not even consistent that the way that one hiring manager in one bureau versus another bureau, let's say the Bureau of Development Services versus Water, they go through their hiring processes differently, and they have the right to do that because each of their ecosystems are incredibly different. So they build and design systems that meet their needs, and sometimes that frustrates people, where there are people who are highly relational dealing with parks and rec, right? And there are people who are dealing with soil and minerals and, waste. Those are night and day, so it's not going to be the same.
Okay. Well, I want to talk more about this, and I also want to talk about the application process itself in interviews. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment, and when we return, Serilda Summers-McGee will share more advice about how you can land a local government job. Your manager stops by your desk. She tells you about the new hire in your department. What's the first thing you do after she leaves? The odds are pretty good. You will Google your new colleague. And you're not alone. We all do it. Whether it's someone joining our team or an important client we want to know better, all of us practice this kind of online research. And so do employers. Surveys show recruiters regularly use LinkedIn and other sites to find and vet candidates. What will an employer see when Googling your name? If you want to be successful in your career, you need to put your best foot forward on the internet. And I have a new and free online class that can help. It's called How to Wow and Woo Employers Online. Sign up today. Go to maxlist.org/wow. In 3 video lessons, I show you how to make the most of social media in your job search. I also give you the basic steps every job seeker needs to take to shine online. And I even tell you what to do when you're tagged in an unflattering photo by an old high school classmate. Go to maxlist.org/wow. Learn how to use social media to grow and serve your professional network. Visit maxlist.org/wow. Now, let's get back to the show. We're back in the MaxList studio. I'm talking today with Serilda Summers-McGee. She's the Chief Human Resources Officer of the City of Portland. Serilda is also the author of Change the Work Game, Building and Sustaining a Diverse Workforce. And she's joining us today in the MaxList studio in Portland. And Serilda, before the break, we were talking about how to build relationships with recruiters and get yourself in front of people and follow up on requests for more information. And let's talk about the application process itself. Again, every sector has its own rules. Here's one I hear a lot about in government, and I expect you do too. It's really important, some people say, to use keywords in an application form for a local government job. Talk about that, Serilda.
So, I can't speak on behalf of all governments, but I've worked for a few and I've worked with a few. And what's most important is not the key words and the scrubbing for keywords. It's mostly about that introductory page that you complete. Keywords are not the important factor. It's actually meeting the qualifications. So if it says that you need 5 years experience or 3 years experience or 2 years experience, and then it gives you a drop down, check boxes. Do you have, less than a year, 1 to 3, 3 to 7, whatever it is, and then you pick a box that does not meet the minimum qualifications, you have been screened out. Full stop. You have been screened out. You do not meet the minimum quals, so you have been screened out.
Okay, so that's an important point because, as we both know, in the private sector, some hiring managers have the latitude to consider applications if a minimum requirement is 5 years from people who might have only 3 or 4 years.
Right.
But that's not the case in local government, is it?
It's not the case. I mean, that's not to say that people don't squeeze through. That's not to say that, there aren't opportunities for you to skate around the system, but by and large, people you have to meet the minimum qualifications. Now, there are all these debates about somebody right now is listening to this and saying minimum qualifications don't determine everything. Well, you're absolutely right. But in government, it becomes the base that we use before determining all of the additional soft skills that you should have. The manager and HR together in concert have identified what those minimum qualifications are, whether it's degrees, whether it's years of experience, or if it's certifications. We have intentionally thought about what those qualifications are, and then we place them on the website for you to check the box to determine if you meet or don't meet. And then if you don't, then you are removed. You are removed by the system. We don't go through and review those folks. Now, there are times when people make an error, right? They check the wrong boxes like, why am I not being pursued for this position? You can let us know about that. You can literally contact the Human Resources Help Desk and say, hey, I checked the wrong box on that. I meant to check this. That is something that we can reverse if you catch it fast enough. But what we're not doing is going through and reviewing your resume and then comparing it to the screened out questions that you completed to see if are they really screened out? No, we're not going to do that. So those are the kinds of screenings where people get lost in the process. Maybe they had 4 years and 8 months of experience. And so they said, well, I'm not quite at 5 years. So they don't check the 5-year box, but they got 4 years and 8 months. If I were them, I'd check the 5-year box. They are by the time we get ready to go through the interview process, they'll probably be at 5 years, right? Now, I'm not saying always, but sometimes it can take a while. Okay,
so there's some flexibility there.
There's some flexibility, yeah. But again, you're going to get a background check. Like, don't lie and then get caught in a lie and then be screened out for a lie after the fact, because then you will be looked at as a liar and untrustworthy, right? So you have to make the determination of, like, is this reasonable? If you're at 4 years and 10 months, is it reasonable to say that you're at 5 years? I believe it is. I believe a hiring manager would believe that it is. But if you are at 4 years and 1 month, that's a pretty extreme exaggeration. And when we go through and do a background check, we're going to be able to determine that you actually don't have the 5 years experience that you said you had.
So bottom line, make sure you pay attention to the minimum qualifications.
Please.
Yes, and if a college degree is required and you don't have one, it's probably don't bother to apply.
Yes.
Okay.
If it is a requirement versus a preferred qualification.
Okay, good point. So there is some flexibility with preferred qualifications.
There is a great deal. You don't have to have any of the preferred qualifications. Okay. You can apply for the job and have none of the preferred qualifications.
Okay. A couple of other questions about applications.
Yeah.
They need to be complete, don't they? So if you're asked to complete, say, 3 separate essays, you can't just turn in 2, can you?
No, you can't.
Okay.
And it speaks to your ability to follow rules, right? We explicitly asked you for 3 non-negotiable responses, and you gave us 1. You're out.
Okay. Application deadlines are huge, aren't they?
They are.
And it can be within, if it's 5 o'clock, you can't walk in at 5:01, can you?
No, you can't.
Okay.
It's highly systematized. So once it expires, and this happens every time, because they usually expire at midnight. So people will be completing a resume last possible seconds. It's like they're in the application process, and but it becomes 12:15 when they press submit, and it doesn't go through. Now, maybe you didn't hear about it until that day. Maybe your mom called you and said you should apply to this job just 45 minutes before it expired. It's really hard to get yourself back into the process. I'm not saying you shouldn't try. You should definitely reach out to the recruiter. You should definitely reach out to HR saying, I was in the system, everything's ready to go. Usually we can check to see if you were in the system. But it's hard to get put back in, particularly if it's high volume.
Okay, good tips. And again, the public sector is like any system. It's got its own rules. And if you're going to thrive in that system, you just have to know how that system works and make it work for you.
That's exactly right.
Good. Let's talk about people who want to make the switch from the private sector to local government. What tips do you have for people, Serilda, who may never have worked in local government before, and they have terrific skills and experience? How have you seen people make that change?
The change is much easier for individual contributors, right? So you were an engineer at a construction organization company, and you want to come and be an engineer in the Water Bureau or in BES, Environmental Services, or in BDS. Let's say you were an accountant in one, you want to come over to the other. That's fine. Where it becomes, and there usually aren't very many challenges associated with that. Where it becomes more complex is when you want to come into a leadership position in government, having never worked in government. People begin to have conversations about, well, will they understand the bureaucracy? Will they understand what it takes to get something pushed through our system, knowing that they're coming from a totally different system where things may move more swiftly? Because just like there are assumptions about government, there are assumptions about for-profit sector. People who've worked in government most of their careers, and I've worked in both, believe that in the for-profit sector, everything goes quickly. It's supercharged. You have an idea, you just execute on the idea. Like, done, nailed it. And in government, we're so sluggish, it might take a few months to get it off the ground. That's not true. If you work in a huge conglomerate for-profit organization, you have just as many hoops to jump through and layers of bureaucracy as the government does. And so those assumptions that we have about the different sectors oftentimes get in the way. So what I tell people is you should most certainly apply. I have jumped from both sides. And remember, the for-profit side has assumptions about people in government, and the government side has assumptions about people in for-profit. But what you have to do is create a narrative to help them see that you have anticipated the differences between the two, and that you are now prepared as a result, right? You can do that in your resume. You can do that with respect to how you write, in your cover letter, and you can do that with respect to how you write your resume, right? So a lot of people will write a resume and they'll highlight the duties that they had. I did this, and then I did that, and then I did that, and I managed this. Okay, that's great. Thank you. But what did you do in that job, right? And when it comes to the what did you do in that job, when crafting your resume, you can create a narrative about that helps a government person see it from their purview, right? So if you created a new system that helped to expedite a process from, being 20 days to being 8 days, if you created a work group to help solve a business solution that had been plaguing multiple divisions in the group, that's great. Because we all have those problems, right? So not only do you tell what your job was, and that can be kind of, you don't have to, I'm not going to go through a resume tutorial, but
sure.
In the bullets, the important real estate, you should be talking about the wins you had that are relevant to this new job, or the creativity you brought to the new job. That is how you can distinguish yourself from the pack of people who are not from government, but also simultaneously help them see that you see yourself working in government. That's so important.
Talk about results, not responsibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we've got to bring it to a close, but I do want to ask quickly one last question. That's about competition, because we all see these news stories. 600 people apply for five fire jobs.
Right.
There can be a lot of competition. How do you see people move to the front of the line when they're competing against dozens or even hundreds of other applicants?
I still come back to relationships. If you want to supercharge your process and people's awareness of your gifts and the value that you add to the team, you should be priming the pump in every job that you have to build relationships. You never know where someone's going to be, so you can do proactive relationship building in the moment when you want something, or you could have been doing it all along. Right. And I tell people it's important for you to cultivate relationships and to go to events and to meet people and to follow up when you have nothing to ask them for, than to wait when everything's on the line, when you're about to get ready, your job is about to term and you need to come and find a new job. And now you need to build a new relationship. That is a tough place to put yourself into. And so I tell folks pretty consistently, build the network today, because that network today, when you don't need a thing, is what's going to serve you tomorrow when you may need the world from someone and you need them to come through for you. Plus, do more for somebody than you ask of them, right? So figure out how you can help support me in what I'm doing, because one day I may be able to support you. We don't like to think about life as being quid pro quo, but quite honestly, if you've never done something for someone, if you've never shown up for someone, and now you're coming to talk to me about a job, and I've known you for a long time, the likelihood of me sticking my neck out for you goes down significantly, because you just want something for yourself. So I would recommend, to stand out from a pack, is to have a strong network and cultivate that network. Whether you're 17 years old listening to this podcast or you're 50 years old today, take someone to lunch, take someone out for coffee, hear their stories, you hear what their goals are, share what your goals are, and continue to do that every single day, because that is going to matter for you as you continue to ascend. Oh,
great. Terrific advice, Serilda. Now, tell us what's next for you.
Oh, man. What's next for me? I always have a plan of what's next for me.
I know that about you.
What's next for me, right now is I am having a blast at the city of Portland. I am having a blast working with the commissioners and the mayor, in particular mayor, and Tom Reinhardt, who's the chief administrative officer for the city of Portland. We're doing really transformational work at the city right now. So that fulfills my soul, because I believe that human resources is the vehicle for change, no matter what the ecosystem is, the organization is, and they are actually utilizing HR the way it was intended to be utilized. So I'm excited to be a part of that journey. But when I leave the city, and I will leave the city, and I'm not a lifer anywhere, quite honestly. When I leave the city, what I hope to do, what I plan to do, is to work full time for myself, doing a human resources consultancy firm.
Good. Well, I look forward to seeing the launch of your firm one day. I know people can connect with you in the meantime on LinkedIn. So look for Serilda Summers-McGee on LinkedIn. And they can also learn more about your work at the City of Portland by visiting this URL, portlandoregon.gov/Bureau of Human Resources. And we'll include that link in the show notes as well. Serilda, thanks for being on the program today.
Thanks for having me, Mac. I appreciate it very much.
It's been a pleasure. Take care. Well, I enjoyed that conversation with Serilda. I especially like her emphasis on relationships. And I think sometimes with large organizations, whether they're in the private or public sector, people think that processes count more than people. In other words, you've got to fill out the form the right way, turn it in by the certain date. And I thought what Serilda brought home very clearly in our interview was that people matter. And if you know you want to work at the City of Portland or other local governments, start building relationships with people now inside those organizations. Because those connections, whether they happen in person or online, can make a huge, huge difference. And that's why we're proud to offer our free online course, How to Wow and Woo Employers Online. You can get your copy today. Go to maxlist.org/wow, and it shows you how to put your best foot forward online and make connections and ultimately build relationships with your professional acquaintances and the employers that you want to work for. Get your free copy today. Go to maxlist.org/wow. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Find Your Dream Job, and join us next Wednesday. Our guest will be Vicki Lynn, and she's going to explain how you can make your good references great. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job.